I'm Giorgio Vasquez. I am a legislative staffer. I like Progress Texas because it is my one-stop shop every single morning to get the news that prepares me for the day. I feel like, every day when I listen to Progress Texas, I'm learning how to respond to this Republican assault on our education, on our healthcare, on our entire way of life. You guys are doing the amazing work of putting together all this news and leading the resistance. I just can't thank you guys enough for doing all the hard work that it takes to go all over this huge, amazing state and do the work that you guys do. It's really fantastic.
It's Wednesday, April 8th, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Progress Texas amplifies progressive values, leaders, and actions. Through our no paywall podcasts and digital media, we reach millions of Texans monthly, and that's made possible by folks like you who invest in independent progressive media by Texans for Texans. Thanks so much to Robert King, Mary Tadican, and Jeffrey Learman for their ongoing sustaining support. I'm coming to you this morning after doing 3 live events over the course of 24 hours. Lots of fun, lots of great content to share over the next few days, especially from the Nature and Clean Energy Summit we covered with Environment Texas yesterday at the wonderful Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center in South Austin, most of which you can watch now on our Facebook and YouTube platforms. A lot of hard work, but a blessing and a solid distraction from one of the scarier days in recent memory, what with our delusional and desperate president openly threatening the civilizational murder of Iran, and his frustration that country didn't just crumble before U.S. military might, frustration doubled by the fact that you and I, dear listener, are still talking about the Epstein files. Molly Wilhelm at the Houston Chronicle covers some of the reactions from Texas's elected officials. San Antonio Congressman Joaquin Castro says, quote, "The president is threatening genocide and possible use of nuclear weapons against Iran. It's clear the president has continued to decline and is not fit to lead. The members of his cabinet must invoke the 25th Amendment immediately," unquote. Houston Congressman Sylvia Garcia says, quote, "President Trump's threat isn't just intimidation. He is openly calling for war crimes. As a Christian, I'm calling for peace. As an American, I'm calling on Republicans in Congress to act immediately. This war must end. We need diplomacy, not bombs. We need peace, not war. Donald Trump is unfit to be president. He must be stopped. It's time for the 25th Amendment." Even Laredo Congressman Henry Cuellar came to his senses for a moment yesterday. He says, quote, "I believe we must be careful with the language we use. Strength and destruction are not the same. The words we choose matter not just here at home, but around the world," unquote. And about the 25th Amendment, let's explain like we're 5 here. Removing the president in this way is a function of the executive branch, not the Congress, at least not in the beginning. Section 4 of the 25th Amendment allows the vice president and a majority of the cabinet to declare that the president is, quote, "unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office," unquote, by sending a written declaration as such to the Congress. And that would do it in the short term. Upon delivery of this congressional notice, the vice president, in this case eyeliner spokesmodel J.D. Vance, would immediately become acting president of the United States. And from there, if the president were to contest this move by his people, the vice president and cabinet would have 4 days to reassert their position that the president is in fact unfit to lead. And from there, the Congress would get involved. They would have 21 days to vote on the replacement of the president with the VP, and a 2/3 majority in both the House and Senate would be required to keep the vice president in power. Let's get real here. This cabinet has been assembled not for their expertise, but for their loyalty to Donald Trump. Most of them banding together against the boss at the risk of their own fortunes seems a tall order, even when he's clearly off his rocker. Trump would be certain to contest such an indignity, of course, and the current balance of power in the Congress would require 20 Republican senators and 73 Republican House members to vote to humiliate and expel Donald Trump. In my mind, no degree of merely verbal shenanigans from the Oval Office is going to make that happen. The 25th Amendment is fun to think about, but it's not likely to save us here. Shifting to Corpus Christi and their water woes, and a story that's as gross as it is inevitable, Dylan Badur at Inside Climate News says the Corpus Christi water supply crisis, one that you might have thought would lead to careful conservation, has rather led to a desperate rush to tap local aquifers. The city's undertaken aggressive emergency drilling projects that have extended the so-called timeline to disaster for the city to this October of 2026. But those drilling operations are drawing intense local backlash as rural residents in small towns like Orange Grove, Texas, report falling water levels and surging salinity in their own wells, sparking fears that industrial-scale emergency pumping of the dwindling groundwater will render their land useless. Governor Greg Abbott is all in on this plan. He's waived most state environmental permits to accelerate groundwater extraction, bypassing standard public input processes. The move for city and state officials, as Corpus Christi teeters on the brink of becoming uninhabitable, is not to curtail industrial use, but rather to suck up as much water as possible, as fast as possible. Welcome to Texas, y'all. And once again, it's perhaps tempting to think of the Corpus Christi crisis as somebody else's problem far away from where you might be listening today, but it's just an early warning for what may await all of us in Texas eventually. Meza Barner-Massum at the Texas Observer says that for years, climate scientists have been warning that South Texas would face prolonged, intense droughts that would drastically impact its water supply, but Corpus Christi's infrastructure and planning have remained synchronized for what used to be normal rainfall. The same can be said for the rest of Texas, fully under control of Republicans with their eyes not on the skies but on their wallets. The Texas Water Plan still uses the 1950s drought of record as its worst-case scenario benchmark, failing to account for projections that the state's water supply will decline 18% by 2070 while demand continues to rise. Corpus Christi serves as a warning as the climate-driven drying up of Texas is moving faster than our outdated systems and plans can recalibrate. Corpus is not an outlier, but a preview of what happens when industrial expansion and a refusal to face environmental facts collide with a dry, hot, and permanent forecast that has perhaps arrived ahead of schedule, but one we knew was coming. And that's before we even bring in massive and very, very thirsty data centers, which threaten even more dramatic drains upon our water as well as our wallets. Paul Kobler at the Texas Tribune says the state is projected to lose $3.1 billion in sales tax revenue over the next 2 years due to a decade-old exemption for the data center industry. Originally costing under $30 million annually, the AI boom has skyrocketed this exemption's value to $1.3 billion this year alone, making it one of the costliest industrial tax incentives in the entire country. Even Republican elected officials who have been all in on AI, the energy and natural resource demands be damned, now have their eyes popping out at the bill. Senator Joan Huffman of Houston and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick are among the Texas GOP types now calling the data center tax break plan unsustainable and are talking about a potential repeal coming during the 2027 legislative session. That's something I picked up on yesterday during the environmental summit. Protecting our natural world may end up a bridge between the sides of the political divide as environmentalists and conservationists discover that they share more common ground than they do conflict, and what they agree on is survival. There are not one but two Texas elections approaching, municipal city-level elections on May 2nd and the statewide primary runoffs on May 26th. Early voting in the municipal election starts April 20th, and for the midterm runoffs, your registration deadline is April 27th. Early voting in the runoffs begins on May 18th. More on all of this at our carefully crafted voting information website, govotetexas.org. Houston listeners, the next episode of our In Progress Roundtable show will come to you on the radio in the middle of a new Thursday afternoon block of progressive political programming, starting at 6:30 p.m. tomorrow and every Thursday evening on KPFT 90.1 FM, after the Progressive Forum and before the midterm show with Ernest Wittring. In Progress runs a second time every Sunday morning at 11 on KPFT FM HD2. With your support, we hope to expand our radio footprint beyond Houston to the top 5 Texas media markets this year. Click the link in the show notes to make your tax-deductible donation to help us reach new audiences via Texas radio. Here at Progress Texas, we're getting ready for our 16th anniversary celebration in Dallas with drinks, light bites, and a fun review of the highlights of our successes over the last few years. Save the date, which is Tuesday, June 16th, and see the link in the show notes to reserve your spot. We hope to see you. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. When lies in Texas are well funded by the far right, your support for fact-based reporting is needed and appreciated. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.